When I think about Minnesota African United, I think
just that platform where like it kind of brings everyone together.
A conduit, for professionals to
learn, educate, and discuss problems and possibly solution for all Africans to improve the life of Africans in Minnesota.
To me, is that umbrella organization where I believe every African diaspora in Minnesota should belong to.
Minnesota African United seeks to build a bridge between African and the diaspora and African living on the continent to create a marketplace where goods and services can be traded globally.
There are all kinds of professional development opportunities. African immigrants in the state of Minnesota are provided opportunity to be, players, in the economic activities of the state.
If you have the commitment to empower your community, then this is a place for you.
In thriving for the welfare of all Africans within Minnesota, MAU has established 10 working committees with people that are passionate and working around the clock on all issues pertaining to Africa. If your subject of interest is not listed, join us so we can create a committee around your interest.
People like me and you trying to see how we can help and grow ourselves. Remember, if you're not at the table, you're in the menu.
We can decolonize our mind, or at least get that opportunity to see one another not just as West African or East African or Southern Africa, but as African together, trying to solve problem with African solution.
Like the African proverb goes, like you go farther together in order to empower like the whole community to basically rise up.
We believe in the nations of Africa, in the continent-wide spirit of entrepreneurship and innovation.
The African continent is home to many of the fastest-growing economies in the world, with a rapidly expanding middle class, a young, diverse workforce, urbanizing populations, and endless opportunities.
One of the most important elements of it to me is to shift the narrative in the way that the West engages with Africa writ large. For far too long, it has been seen as a region filled with problems and few opportunities. And I think that we should be shifting that to look at it as a region that does have challenges, but is also filled with opportunities.
Prosper Africa brings together the power of 17 U.S. government agencies and market experts to identify investments, secure deals, and create new trade pathways between the nations of Africa and the United States.
I'm a huge fan of Prosper Africa. I've seen what it can do and how it can help companies like Cisco and how engaged the people on the ground are. They also bring a very clear and objective view of what their role is going to be, what their expectations from Cisco are.
We're a one-stop shop, so companies don't have to waste valuable resources navigating Washington to do business in the United States and across the African continent.
Working with Prosper Africa is so easy because there's a deal room and we're able to present a pitch. And Prosper Africa basically stands as an intermediary between us and investors and businesses that could be interested and help bridge the gap. So it actually ends up being easier for us than to spend the effort chasing individual investors sort of across the US.
Through Prosper Africa, the U.S. government has helped close hundreds of deals, generating billions in new exports and investments. And the prospects for future growth and continued shared prosperity are as large and as vibrant as the continent itself.
I used Prosper Africa's support to identify the appropriate funders for our organization.
Prosper Africa can give us that introduction. They can give us the credibility. They can help us validate us as being good actors. And that's the important thing.
Being able to use this Prosper Africa platform allows us to reach the right investors, that allows us to grow and scale our business to the rest of the emerging markets.
Working hand in hand with the private sector and African governments, Prosper Africa strengthens two-way trade and investment, supporting thousands of jobs for African and American workers.
We must all work together to advance our shared vision of a better future, a future of growing trade and investment that advances prosperity for all our nations.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for attending our webinars today on new opportunities of trade and investment in Cameroon, hosted by Minnesota Africans United in partnership with Global Minnesota, U.S. Commercial Services in Minnesota, U.S. Chambers of Commerce in Cameroon, U.S. Embassy in Cameroon, Minnesota Trade Office, and Minnesota District Export Council. My name is Basil Ajuo, and I am the Chief Executive Officer for Minnesota Africans United, also known as MAU. MAU was founded in 2017 and have been growing every year since then. We are a coalition and statewide organization for all African diaspora communities. We represent Africans coming from 55 African countries with over 392,000 immigrants living here in the state of Minnesota. Today is an exciting day for us to host our second of 8 webinars in the year 2022, with the first being focused on Malawi, and the second today focused on new opportunities of trade and investment in Cameroon. Our goal for this webinar today is to address the needs and concerns of both African diaspora, U.S. businesses interested in doing international business in Cameroon that will create jobs and increase revenue for African diaspora in both Cameroon and United States of America. Following this webinar, MAU will be facilitating and leading a trade mission to the country of Cameroon and also to the country of Ghana to build business partnerships and joint ventures. Today, we are excited to have our keynote speakers, Christina Hardaway, who is the Deputy Political and Economic Chief at the U.S. Embassy, Yaoundé, Cameroon. She will share information on U.S. government resources available for U.S. companies doing businesses overseas. We also have among us Sandy Renner, who is the chair of the board at Fast Track Global Expansion Solutions Incorporated. He's also the chair of Minnesota District Export Council. She will share the role of Minnesota District Export Council in helping U.S. businesses take advantage of international markets. We are also honored to hear from successful African businesses that have traded with U.S. partners in a variety of ways that promote trade and investment between Africa and the United States. Our panelists include Dr. Thierry Wandji. He is the Chief Executive Officer for Cybastion Institute of Technology. We also have Abdiwahab Mohamed. He is the Regional Trade Manager at Minnesota Trade Office for Africa, Middle East, and India. We also have Laure and Djoukam, who is the board president of the Cameroon, U.S. Chambers of Commerce in Cameroon. And finally, Mr. Samuel Ngwa. He is the president and CEO of Savary Pride. Without further ado, I would now like to welcome Ritchie, president of Global Minnesota, who will kick off with our first keynote speaker, Christina Hardaway. Ritchie, now hand over the microphone to you.
Thank you, Basil, and congratulations again to Minnesota African United. This whole year of programming is transforming how Minnesotans understand the possibilities and how our partnerships can go deeper. So looking forward to today's webinar, of course, but also looking a month ahead to the webinar with Ghana and towards the trade mission in the summer in July. And so today we'll kick off the program with a really special representative of the United States and the United States government, our Deputy Political Economic Chief in the U.S. Embassy in Yaoundé in Cameroon, a city that I visited and was really amazed and inspired by. And so I was really grateful for her willingness to join us today, kind of late in the day for her, to help get this process started. What's unique and very special about Deputy Economic Chief Hardaway is that she has been in service in our nation's diplomatic corps in many different regions of the planet, in Mexico, in the Netherlands, in the Washington, D.C. area. And she was also one of the individuals in a very special international affairs program named after one of my legislative heroes, Charles Rangel. Many of you watching today remember his leadership on international issues in general. And so a very special group of our Foreign Service officers have been honored with participation in that program that's named after Congressman Rangel. So we're really thrilled to have you here this morning, and I want to turn the microphone over to you. And again, thank you for joining us from Yaoundé and from the U.S. Embassy there today.
Thank you, Mr. Ritchie, for that gracious presentation, and thank you, Minnesota Africans United, for inviting me to your webinar this afternoon. The State Department actually has a lot of engagement with Minnesota due to the large African diaspora there, so we're happy to support the initiative. I am going to share a PowerPoint, so I'm going to share my screen and then just give a presentation about trade and investment opportunities in Cameroon. So just an agenda, I'm going to talk about what the commercial team at the U.S. mission in Cameroon does. I'm going to go over our country commercial guide. So this is a piece of a document that gets updated and edited every 3 years, but it really outlines doing business in Cameroon. And then I'm going to talk about how Prosper Africa is operational in Cameroon. I'm glad that you guys showed the video at the beginning to introduce Prosper Africa. Okay, so the U.S. commercial team in Cameroon. So I'm as Mr. Ritchie stated, a State Department Foreign Service officer. I've been in the service for 10 years. I'm what's called an economic officer. Here in Cameroon, I serve as the Deputy Chief of the Political and Economic Section, and I lead the Economic, Commercial, and Environment portfolio. There are several agencies that are involved with commercial issues overseas. The main one is the U.S. Department of Commerce, who has a foreign commercial service, but they're usually in larger markets. And in a market like Cameroon, we have an agreement with the U.S. Department of Commerce to deliver their branded services. And so we're what's called a partner post. So in the U.S. Embassy here in Yaoundé, there's me, and there is a Cameroonian commercial specialist who's worked for the embassy for 17 years now. So he has deep knowledge and history. And then we have what's called a U.S. Embassy branch office in Douala. Douala is the economic and business capital. That's where the U.S. The American Chamber of Commerce is located. We have an office there with a director and a Cameroonian commercial assistant. We work closely with the U.S. Foreign Commercial Office, which is in the U.S. Consulate in Lagos, to deliver commercial services. We also work with the Department of State Bureau of Economic and Business Affairs, so that's my home bureau, and other USG agencies as it is applicable. A lot of what we do is that I mentioned this commerce branded services. So some of you may already heard about these, like a Gold Key service, single company promotion, international partner search, international company profile. But as you think about your trade delegation more, I do want to tell you that we can offer these services. So we can facilitate matchmaking. We can do customized research on different partners. We can facilitate key meetings. We just completed a Gold Key service for another company where we facilitated meetings with ministers and our Sharjah accompanied the company to the meetings. As the COVID situation evolves, we may also start thinking about how to do events. So just putting that out there, we work with the U.S. Department of Commerce to execute those services. And then also a lot of what we do here in Cameroon is called advocacy. There's something called little a advocacy and big A advocacy. A lot of projects, especially if they are government projects, involve some diplomatic or political push to get them through. So we spend a lot of time advocating for projects that we think align with Cameroon's development goals and US goals in Cameroon. So now I'm just going to go over our country commercial guide. I have a link in the PowerPoint presentation. I won't go to it now for the sake of time, but the country commercial guide is a document that embassies put together in cooperation with the Department of Commerce, usually every 3 years. I just updated and edited ours last summer, so it's fairly recent, that really gives you an outline of how to go about starting exploring market opportunities in a country. I'm just going to go over the main sections and talk about those. And then if people have questions, I can also share the link to Cameroon's country commercial guide. The guide starts off with market overview and challenges. For Cameroon, I always say Cameroon is a special place and it's very strategic. So Cameroon is located in between Nigeria and the rest of Central Africa, which includes Chad, Gabon, Equatorial Guinea, Central African Republic. So it's really more than when you're thinking about entering into Cameroon, you're also thinking about entering into the Central Africa market. It's considered a gateway to Central Africa. Cameroon's economy is very diverse. So it is an oil producer like other countries in the regions. But I think what makes it different is that it is not dominantly dependent on oil. So it has agriculture, has other things going for it, that if you just leave things alone, the economy will run by itself, basically. The port in particular in Douala, 90% of the things that have to get to Chad and Central African Republic, which are landlocked, come through the port of Douala. So that's another strength for Cameroon when you're thinking about market opportunities and why the economy also just kind of runs automatically. Across the region, they call Cameroon Africa in miniature. So you can find almost any type of landscape here. There's beaches, there's a mountain, there's desert up in the north, there's savanna, there's forest. Cameroon is part of the Congo Basin Forest Network. So all these different landscapes give Cameroon strength. And Cameroon is a bilingual country. Most Cameroonians understand English and French, even though they may not be able to speak both of them with some proficiency. They understand it both. So a lot of times when I go to meetings, the meeting will truly be conducted in English and French without interpretation. People just understand each other. So all of those things are strengths of Cameroon. Doing some of the challenges, Cameroon does have business climate challenges. So it ranks towards the bottom of the World Bank Doing Business report, Transparency International Corruption Perceptions Index. It ranks towards the bottom of that. There are a lot of project delays. State-owned enterprises are also tend to be in debt or non-performing. So those are some challenges in Cameroon's, and a lot of business transactions, especially when it comes to the United States, because our relationship is taken seriously here, require a senior level government approval. And that's why we do a lot of activists here, because we have to often engage with someone high level to get a project going and off the ground. I'm now going to talk about key market opportunities. So Cameroon is a developing country in every sense of the word. There's so much that needs to be done, and that's where the opportunity is. So US firms that can provide solutions in transportation, whether that be railways, roads, seaports, airports, utilities, waters, sewage, electricity. Electricity is a huge issue. Extractives, oil, gas, minerals, timbers. All of these present opportunities in Cameroon. The state-owned enterprises that I mentioned, Cameroon has a lot of them. So almost anything you can think of has some government hand in it, like the internet, the water utility. they all need capital upgrades, and many of these capital upgrades come from foreign investment. So those are market opportunities. And American products are known for quality and dependability. Laure will tell you, we met with the Prime Minister and he said, we need American technology. So that's where, that's a competitive advantage for American products. We won't compete with what we would call low margin products, but we are known for high tech quality products. So some of the leading sectors include construction equipment. Another just kind of political tidbit about Cameroon. Cameroon is in a continuing discussion about how to decentralize authority from the central level down to local bodies. So as it stands right now, Cameroon has one of the most centralized government systems I've seen. But in order to respond to some of citizen concerns, there are actions or efforts underway to devolve some authorities to local councils, regional councils, other local citizen bodies. So what that means is that eventually these local councils, regional councils should have a budget and project development plans. And that creates opportunity for US companies to also come in and do construction and other infrastructure work. Yaoundé and Douala also face housing and office space shortages. In unexploited mineral resources, so Cameroon's mining sector is pretty nascent, but once it gets going, that will also be the opportunity to provide construction equipment to exploit mineral resources. We also need roads to get the minerals from where they are. They're usually in the east or south, which is way away from the port, to the port of Douala, which is in the country's western border. Moving on to port infrastructure and services, I mentioned how critical the port of Douala is for the region, and why and how it makes Cameroon serves as the gateway to Central Africa. Cameroon has another port called the Port of Kribi. It's about 2 hours south of Douala. But this is a deep sea port in Central Africa. It's currently the only deep sea port in Central Africa, and it is still expanding. So that's another opportunity for US companies in terms of equipment, warehouse and storage, manufacturing, distribution centers, and also in the surrounding towns. Kribi, for example, is really like a beach resort town. And so when the port came, they had to bring in workers to work at the port, but as it expands, the town will also need development and infrastructure needs. And then there's another port in Limbe, which is in Cameroon's southwest region. It currently serves some of the oil companies that are active in the region, but there are also discussions to expand the port of Limbe's capacity. And then moving to oil and gas. Oil and gas is Cameroon's biggest export. Although, like I said, Cameroon is not completely dependent on oil and gas, but it's still a major export. In 2017, Cameroon and Equatorial Guinea agreed to develop their Yolanda and Yo-Yo gas condensate discoveries as a single resource jointly. So the company that's working on that exploration is treating the two discoveries as one project. And so there'll be a lot of collaboration moving forward in exploration and moving the gas to the port. So there's opportunities in storage pipelines, gas to electricity power stations, liquid natural gas equipment, oil and gas exploration equipment, oil and petroleum refinery equipment. And then electricity. So I would guess most people are familiar with Power Africa. I have a link in the PowerPoint to how to really get involved in Power Africa opportunities across the continent. But here in Cameroon, our Power Africa programs focuses on off-grid power generation. Cameroon faces frequent electricity outages due to aging infrastructure. My power goes out at least once a day. So that's a huge need and a huge opportunity for American companies to provide that technology. Some other tidbits to know, Cameroon's electricity distributor, ANEO, which is a British-owned company, they agreed on a concession extension from 2021 to 2031. So with that extension, they're able to raise investment. There's opportunities in generation, transmission, distribution, and renewable energy. There's also a huge need for rural electrification, which is also why we're focusing on off-grid energy, while Power Africa is focusing on off-grid energy here in Cameroon. So US companies can present solutions for rural electrification to increase rural electrification rates. In agriculture equipment, agriculture is another major component of Cameroon's economy. They export cocoa, banana, coffee, cotton, rubber, and corn. Cameroon has some of the best produce and food, I would say, in Africa. But there's also a lot of needs that need to be developed. So in particular, the government wants to increase production of a lot of these export commodities and move further up the value chain. So, and this is across Africa, but what will happen is that they'll export just the raw good. And so they want to add some type of value added processing to that. They also want to increase domestic rice production. So again, across the region, there's been severe rice shortages in the past few years. So there's a desire to boost domestic rice production. State-owned enterprises are involved in pretty much all the commodities I mentioned, but it makes, for a US company, it makes identifying who to partner with a bit easier, even though it might hamper some of the economic innovation in those sectors. But these sectors will need equipment for cultivating fresh produce and other high value crops. They'll need low and medium horsepower tractors, and they'll need first stage agricultural transformation equipment. Some other sectors that I did not, that are not in the country commercial guide, but I do want to point out is ICT, internet and telecommunications. So it's among the fastest growing economic sector. But internet penetration in Cameroon is still one of the lowest in sub-Saharan Africa. The main player in this is the Ministry of Telecommunications and Posts and Camtel, which is the state-owned internet company, basically. But there is expected to be a lot of expansion in the coming years, and they will need partners and equipment. Their main partner right now is Huawei, but I think it is worth the time to introduce diversity of vendors, suppliers, equipment as the internet infrastructure here grows. Banking and finance is another area I just wanted to highlight. Cameroon is a part of what's called the Central Africa Economic Monetary Zone, CEMAC. There is a shared central bank and a shared currency. So the Central Bank of African States, BIAC, and the CFA franc is shared across the CEMAC region. Cameroon is the largest economy in the CEMAC. And so there are 15 banks here, 26 insurance companies, there's a state pension fund, a state-owned mortgage bank. There's hundreds of microfinance institutions. There's a early stage stock market in Douala. And there's a continuing need to get more Cameroonians introduced to formal banking services. So that's another growth sector that I wanted to highlight. Okay, moving on to the investment climate statement. I included a link in the PowerPoint as well. This is another report that the embassy drafts on an annual basis that basically just tells you what the climate is like in Cameroon. Some key things that I wanted to note for today in terms of updates on Cameroon's investment climate statement. Cameroon recently signed on to IMF program last summer. The technical term, it's an extended credit facility, extended fund facility program. It's a 3-year program, but the key thing for U.S. companies is that, or any company, is that when it comes to government projects, Cameroon has to submit a priority project list to the IMF every year to continue their eligibility for this program. So as you develop connections, as you explore projects, I always tell U.S. companies that if you want your project to move forward, you need to make sure that it's considered a priority for Cameroon within that framework. Just some more notes on what the program focuses on. Is really focusing on structural economic reforms. So this includes public spending, state-owned enterprise management. I mentioned that a lot of them need some improvement in management, and tax administration. So that's why also the priority project list is important, because that's one of the main pillars of the IMF program, is to improve fiscal and public management. Some other notes about Cameroon's investment climate, which I already mentioned. So that it's a unique mix of natural resources, geography. It shares a 1,000-mile border with one of Africa's largest economy, Nigeria. It's the economic engine of what I call the CMAC zone, the Central African Economic Monetary Zone, and it's bilingual, which is really a strength. Some things that we do warn people about in the far north region, this is also towards the northern border with Nigeria. There has been a Boko Haram and ISIS West Africa crisis, and then there has been violence, periodic violence in the English-speaking regions in the Southwest and Northwest region. Cameroon also lost AGOA eligibility in 2020 due to human rights concerns. Foreign investment at the moment continues to focus on infrastructure and the extractive industries. Some other things that is a common thread when we deal with private sector is the slow public administration. So things are slow, and corruption is also a concern. Okay. All right, talking about the investment climate statement. All right, Prosper Africa. So there's a good video introduction of Prosper Africa. Basically, the idea behind Prosper Africa is that it's like a one-stop shop for the dozens of U.S. government agencies that deal with trade and investment in Africa. So it's something that we've already been doing, but now it's just easier to locate all these resources. So how Prosper Africa plays out in Cameroon, and what we deal with mostly in Cameroon is one, the U.S. Export-Import Bank. We have a lot of projects that are getting some type of support from the U.S. Export-Import Bank. These are mostly infrastructure projects, but it's a popular financing mechanism here. I mentioned our close collaboration with the U.S. Department of Commerce, the U.S. Development Finance Corporation. So the U.S. Development Finance Corporation used to be an agency called the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, OPIC. And then in 2019, under the BUILD Act, it transformed into a development finance focused agency. So they have a mandate to finance development now, which gave it a lot more flexibility. So you don't have to be a U.S. company to qualify for the funding, which was the requirement under OPIC. They still have some of the same tools, which include loans, some technical assistance like a feasibility study. And they have a new equity branch, so they can take ownership in some funds and projects, but that's very new. Here in Cameroon, they currently finance an eye clinic. And the financing is very, I would say, unique. It's a development impact bond. So this eye clinic raised bonds on the market specifically for ophthalmology. And so the DFC helped them do that. I also mentioned, and there's some other projects in the pipeline. I'm hoping they come to fruition this year, but the DFC is still looking for what they call critical sector projects across the continent. The sectors that they're focused on include health, energy, infrastructure, ICT, carbon, low carbon, climate change kind of focus projects. So all of those fit into the needs of Cameroon. I'll also mention the U.S. Trade and Development Agency. So if you've never heard of this agency, their main role is to connect U.S. companies to infrastructure projects overseas. How they do it, their main tool is that they give grants, so free money, for feasibility studies for these projects. So in Cameroon, they're currently funding a feasibility study to study off-grid solar energy. So this is with a Cameroonian off-grid company, and also a Power Africa partner, and a U.S. battery company. In the past, they've done feasibility studies for hydroelectric power projects as well. And while it's not a requirement, the idea is that if we come in, with this free study, in the end, a U.S. company will be chosen for the project. And then I'm glad to see Laure on the webinar today. We work closely as well with the U.S. Chamber and American Chamber of Commerce. Okay, so that's the end of my presentation. I'll let you guys proceed with the order, and then I'm open to questions if people want to ask questions.
Thank you so much. Such a great overview about a very important country, and you gave us a way to understand both the opportunities, some of the challenges. There's one specific question that maybe you could tackle. It might be a short and brief one. Great information, Christina. How is the Cameroonian market's posture towards American entrepreneurs and companies? ? Do European companies have preferential treatment on the ground? ? In your opinions, what would be the comparative advantage of U.S. companies versus European Chinese on the ground? Not such a simple thing, but let's just take that one question. Thank you.
Yeah, so like I said, Americans in general are known to be straight. They're known for high quality. The projects that the U.S. Embassy chooses to advocate for, they often transfer technology. They hire local Cameroonians. So those are all the things that we tout as a competitive advantage for U.S. companies. One thing that is likely a challenge across the region is that U.S. companies have to abide by the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which really that's the landscape here. It creates a lot of hurdles. Even though it's fair, it creates hurdles for U.S. companies when other companies don't have the same laws to abide by. So when you compare Chinese or European companies, they don't have a Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. They don't have any corruption legislation to abide by. So yeah, that's a challenge. But we're happy to maintain that American companies, especially if they're backed by the embassy, are always honest and fair and very interested in the development of Cameroon, and that's what we're known for. So those are the strengths that we promote.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for being there to be the touch point and assistant for people who want to dig in and go deeper. So there was a request for you to put your email, your contact in the chat if you can.
Okay,
but thank
sure.
you again. And thank you also for helping us stay right on time. It's my pleasure to introduce our next keynote presenter. Sandra Renner is somebody that I've had the great privilege of working with here in Minnesota for decades, if I can say something so bold. But Sandy was the person who, from the very beginning, back in the 1990s, was saying we've got to get Minnesota's small businesses and medium-sized businesses to have the same passion and the same determination and the same success by reaching out and being part of international market chains. And Sandy was also the person who believed in trade as a two-way street, not mercantilism, export, 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 but trade, mutual trade was always the mantra. And so she's served in her roles in the private sector, starting and leading a company, and now in the role of chair of the board for Fast Track Global Expansion Solutions. And if you haven't gotten her book, which gives you this in a very direct way, that's an important way to have access to some of her wisdom and experience and knowledge. But she also has been part of her work, her time, and contributing to public service, especially in being part of the Minnesota District Export Council, and now serving as chair, but been active since 1994. This is a part of our state infrastructure, working with the U.S. Department of Commerce's Foreign Commercial Service, which we have a local office. Many of you maybe have heard that of the Commercial Service, but it's part of the National U.S. Commerce Department and connected into our embassies around the planet. Sandy, thank you for taking time out and being part of our program this morning, and I'm turning the microphone over to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mark, and thank you, Basil, for inviting me to participate in today's program. Our topic, New Opportunities for Trade and Investment in Cameroon, is very timely, as interest in emerging markets has really increased over the past few years. And Minnesota is really very well positioned to participate in these markets. Minnesota, for those of you who don't know or might not know, Minnesota is a leader in many industries that have potential in a number of countries in Africa, including Cameroon. Sectors such as medical and healthcare, both production and value-added agriculture, infrastructure and construction, and water technology are all sectors where Minnesota excels and has both large and small companies that are headquartered in the state. And I'm sure if I listed those companies, most of you would be familiar with a good share of them. These are all sectors of interest to Cameroon's economic development organizations and to businesses in Cameroon. The question really becomes, how do U.S. companies identify and pursue these opportunities, or how do businesses or organizations, entities in these various African countries identify and pursue the opportunities and get connected with the correct or the best companies in the U.S.? And how do they get some guidance along the way to help ensure success of these ventures? I want to spend the next few minutes telling you about an organization that can provide some of this guidance, and it's what Mark just mentioned, the network of district export councils. So district export councils are referred to as DECs, and DECs are private nonprofit organizations of business leaders whose knowledge of international trade provides a source of professional advice for local firms. Members are volunteers, but they're appointed by successive U.S. Secretaries of Commerce, and they've been in existence for probably close to 50 years. Each state has at least one DEC, and there are 61 DECs spanning the country. There are about 1,500 appointed DEC members from organizations ranging from SMEs to large companies to export service providers to trade and industry associations to governmental agencies to academic institutions. So each DEC can have up to 35 members. And when you think about combining that many volunteers from this swath of all these various components that really are necessary in order to achieve success in international trade of any type, you can see where the DECs really bring a lot of value to the business community. And again, these individuals serve on a volunteer basis to provide mentoring, counseling, and other support to their local businesses. And they help them to address all the challenges related to exporting, whether it be products, services, or technologies.
Decks are closely aligned with the U.S. Commercial Service offices, and the directors of those offices actually serve as the executive secretaries on the decks. And Christina mentioned in her comments about how they work with the U.S. Department of Commerce, with the field offices to help link suppliers and buyers, kind of going both ways. Minnesota DEC members also meet with federal, state, and local elected officials to kind of help educate them and inform them on trade policy issues that impact Minnesota's business community. So we have regular meetings with these individuals and really try to keep them informed about, where some opportunities might be or what some challenges might be, or just to kind of appraise them of some of the issues and challenges that our companies face as they try to compete in international markets. One service that our DEC has developed that I think might be of interest is our website, which is exportassistance.com. And this is available to anyone and contains export basics, market research reports, top market reports, key U.S. industry reports, the country commercial guides that Christina mentioned. We have those posted at our website, the CIA fact book, information about export finance and insurance, short videos and webinars, and a program that's called Export U. And Export U is a program that was actually developed by our DEC counterparts in Georgia. And it's a series of videos, which you can find at our DEC website, that take you through the export process, covering topics such as market intelligence, costing and pricing. There's a session or a section on international trade shows, payment terms, which are always sort of a challenging topic, export finance, also a challenge, global risk management, export documentation, and website globalization, as well as a host of other topics. So again, if you go to our website, exportassistance.com, there's no fee, there's no cost, there's no registration, nothing that you have to do, but that information is available to you wherever you might be. If you're in the US and you're in another state, it's very likely that your DEC also has a website. There's a National Association of District Export Councils, and the board is comprised of members of the local councils. So if you go to that national website, which is usaexporting.org, you'll find a lot of information, webinars, and just lots of information there. But you'll also find, when you go right to that site, one of the first things you'll see is a US map titled Find Your Local District Export Council. So you can click on a state and you'll see the link to their DEC website or to contact information for that DEC. So really, it's just kind of a, sort of a closed loop kind of a situation here with, you've got the DECs, you've got the U.S. Commercial Service Office, you've got the Foreign Commercial Service offices around the world. So it's all, available to you really as a resource to help you do as much as you can to be successful in these various international markets. In closing, again, there are a number of services and programs to assist exporters, and I hope that just by familiarizing you with district export councils, because that's something that many, many people who are involved in trade aren't familiar with, I hope that this might bring another resource to help you along your path in addressing various challenges and opportunities. So I'm going to turn it back to Mark, and again, be very happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Thank you again, and thank you for reminding us about those other resources, the videos and all of the things that are available to us, and basically part of the public service and the work of our government and of our private citizens like yourself. Folks wanted to know the title of your book. Would you like to do a brief promotion of that fabulous guidebook?
Well, okay, so just a quick background on it. So I've been involved in international trade for, well, my entire career. And my business partner and I worked for the state of Minnesota back in the 80s when the trade office was first established, and we could see that companies really need a path on which to travel in their export journey. So we developed a methodology called Fast Track Exporting, which we used that methodology as a consulting business for many, many years. And we wrote a book for the American Management Association many years ago. We have since taken that book and we've created a whole series of manuals that you can find on Amazon called Fast Track Globalizer. And there's several phases. And then since doing that, we've also created an app called the Globalizer. And that is a subscription app that, again, takes you through all aspects, has like 150 decision sheets. So it's been sort of a evolution of my life, of the work, the book, the manuals, and now the app. So that's my story.
Well, and to fully disclose, we worked together at the Minnesota Department of Agriculture when the trade office was part of that. I think it was appropriate in the early stages. A lot of our trade was corn and soybeans. But I do think the vision, particularly Governor Perpich, building a World Trade Center, creating a special trade office. And that was inspired by you and a few other people taking the idea that all of Minnesota businesses should consider how they are part of a global market. Some, they're on the supply chain, they're taking in products. Some, they're exporting or actually trading services. And so that evolution in trade has also been reflected in the sophistication of the tools and the evolution of things like the app, which you've created and made available to all of us. So it's wonderful to see now that so many people from other parts of the world continue to come to Minnesota, but they don't lose their connection back home, whether it's Norway or Cameroon or Mexico or Japan or China. They continue to use those relationships to build out businesses and new innovations. Could you give us an example of one of the clients that's been fun for you that went through a process and then created that virtuous circle that you described, putting it all together into one package?
Well, I would say that, if I think about from our district export council work, we have done a lot with, so we have a small and medium, or usually like a small and medium size range company, and they might be sort of have their foot in the door of some, export business. And all of a sudden they come up against something where they hadn't thought things through, and there's a challenge, there's an issue, there's a problem. So we might have them talk with, I can use the example of ventilation systems for swine confinements, the big buildings. So they had an issue with, in a market that they were going in, they hadn't really, they had made some assumptions about the type of servicing that their equipment would need and what kind of technologies would be available, what kind of trained people would be available. So they ended up having to, rethink that whole market. But as a result, they talked with maybe 3 or 4 people of our district export council, because one challenge that was resolved led to identified another one and then another one. So it's just very interesting to see companies that really are committed to success and to doing it right, taking advantage of those resources that are there and available to them. And so that's always really interesting to me, is that you find people within an organization, it's got to be the leadership of the company usually that says, hey, we want to do this right, and we want to reach out to these resources that are available. So I think that, just any time that working with these people to me is very exciting and very rewarding. And then just from, I guess, if I think about from my business perspective, I think the most probably challenging or interesting project, or at least one of them, was a company that produced the blades that you put on earth moving equipment, like those big blades. There's like the cutting edges that go on to those big blades, and they were really interested to target markets and figure out which markets, like which sectors, like mining, construction, what have you. And we helped them to target mining, but then what kind of mining? And we figured out like how much earth in gold mining, how much earth you move before those cutting edges need to be replaced. Looked at where the big companies like Caterpillar and all of these different, big earth moving equipment companies had their offices around the world. And it was just so, because this company was, they had done international for quite a few years. They had really good experienced people. And when we asked them to, on a map, put your pins where you think your main markets are, honestly, when we went through the targeting process, they had none of the markets. The markets were totally different than what they thought they would be. So that's always really rewarding, just to, but you have to have people who are committed and want to know these things, not just like happenstance kind of exploring.
Well, and I think one of the ways that you've led by example is being devoted to this work over decades. And I think there is a kind of a get rich quick idea that's in some people's minds, and there's sort of, emergency situations, and somebody say, oh, I could make a fast buck. But you've always led by putting the relationships first, making sure that you were well prepared with your knowledge. You were just describing an instance where there was a perception and reality was different. But I wonder if there is a way that you found to help entrepreneurs and small business owners and medium-sized to embrace the value proposition that takes patience and time, meaning you have to have capital and you have to have certain things that make it possible for you to be patient. Any special ways that you've come to tackle that contradiction of a sort?
Please enter the I think that it really takes, again, it kind of goes back to company leadership, and the companies that have leaders that not only understand that whole premise, but want to implement that within their organization. They are the ones that are that really see the result at the end of a time frame. It's not going to be tomorrow. It's not going to be next month. But they need to understand that, and they need to prepare their organization. We always say success is really from the boardroom to the production floor, and everyone is part of that process. Everyone is part of that process, no matter who it is in the organization. And they have to understand what their role is in success. And so I think that's an opportunity for companies to kind of reassess what they're doing, because truly it does take the whole organization. Most problems that companies incur, or at least a good share of them, are really nothing to do with the foreign market, nothing to do with that buyer, but it's to do with their own internal organization. And whether they're finance people are not astute enough to really kind of understand what the competitor is offering in terms of their financing, payment terms, all of that. Sometimes they are kind of like carved in stone, and that's how we do it at this company. And, it just so many things like that, or customer service, or getting product development people you're involved in, 5 years down the road, we want to be in this market, but their specifications are going to have to be this, or they require this kind of material, or in order to make the shipping costs more effective for this market. Just so many things. It's just like you can see it, but it is hard. I will say it is hard to convince or to I get, well, and so we have always focused on that company leadership that sees it and believes it and wants to incorporate that into their organization. So personally, I know what, Mark, what you're saying about how decades ago we were at the startup of the state's trade effort. And, a lot of the companies that were small new startups back then, especially if you think of our medical and healthcare, they were small little companies that were helped through all that process. And now, so you just have to have the right. So company leaders, you need to look at what you're doing within your organization, and you can improve your degree of success.
Right. Well, this is one aspect of all of these webinars we've been doing, whether it's Malawi or one's coming up or one's focused on mining or timber. We've done a lot together, Global Minnesota, Minnesota African United, Prosper Africa, Power, all. But at the end of the day, there has to be a belief at the part of particularly the leaders of a company, founders or owners or leaders, that it can be successful. And that's a different thing than saying its success is guaranteed, or it's a different thing than saying, oh, that's a long shot. Let's give it a long shot. And I believe that one of the things that Minnesota has done and could do more is use the expertise of our diaspora communities in those things that you were describing in terms of the conditions, the expectations, product development, the conditions of transport, finance relationships, payment. Can you give us one more example? And we are running out of your time, but could you give us one example of where marrying the diaspora experience, wisdom, knowledge really did make the difference in a successful two-way street?
Well, I think that is an area where we, as from our district export council perspective anyway, we have tried to find the path for doing that, really. And that's why we were so very, very happy that Basil has agreed to be on the District Export Council and is now a new member recently appointed by the U.S. Secretary of Commerce. And so we are going to put a focus on doing just what you said. We need to find better ways to not just connect these opportunities, because over the years, there have been many say USAID projects that our companies have tried to pursue. They just haven't seemed to make that click, or, we've got the medical and health. And I think that in the Midwest region, and I was actually just speaking with someone from Sanford Medical in South Dakota and learned that they are having some clinics in Ghana. So I think now the time might just be right, I think, for trying to build these connections. But I will say that it has been quite a challenge in the past. And I think it's been, you see the opportunity, but then the route to achieving that connection or objective has been a little elusive. So hoping that we can make things happen, help to make them happen moving forward.
I also share your optimism about this being the right time. And just, I think Sanford Health has been working in Ghana for almost a decade, but only now is it becoming something that we're all taking into consideration. So maybe we are on that time. It's a complicated place out there in that world. Lots of things to worry about, of course, but one of the critical components of business and trade is that it is a connectivity among people who have to share this planet. And we have to be thinking about the contribution of trade and the relationships developed in trade, whether it's products, services, or tourism or travel. And having a deck with such wonderful leadership like yourself, having now Basil as a new appointee by the U.S. Secretary, these are all things that can help Minnesota continue that tradition of using commerce as, sure, yes, it's an economic matter, but it's also a matter of humanity and relationships and building out the kind of understanding, advancing international understanding, as we say, that is so important to keeping in mind these challenges, whether it's COVID or climate or conflict. We are challenged. We have to work and collaborate together. And the work that you and others have done to build trade as a two-way street, to build success so that people are willing to take the risk, but also to being a real advisor and a skilled coach and connector. These are things that make the world a better place, a safer place. And we so appreciate you coming on today and being part of this panel, part of this webinar, and look forward to seeing you again at our future webinars. Thank you, Sandra Renner. Thank you for the
appreciate
deck.
the chance to participate. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks.
I'd like to ask our panel members to join me here. Please unmute your microphones and your video. Laure, Abdi, Samuel, Thierry. Great. We're staying on time in a very good way. I want to open by calling on you. I'll just randomly do that to give a brief introduction of yourself and your work and your place in this. And then after our four introductions, then we will move forward from there to our conversation. And Abdi, you're our official state person here. Let's start with you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for the presenters who've gone before me. That was an excellent presentation. My name is Abdiwahab Mohamed. As Mark mentioned, I'm a state employee, so I work for the Minnesota Trade Office that's housed under the Department of Employment and Economic Development. I cover the trade for Africa, Middle East, and India. So I help companies export FDI in those regions.
Great. And I think you've just returned from Arab Health, helping some small companies. Can you give us just a little snippet of that?
So just to get into perspective, so I work for the Minnesota Trade Office. And the Traders Office's mission is to advocate for Minnesota businesses pursuing international markets and to promote and assist in their export endeavors. And so the region that I'm tasked with is the Middle East and Africa, including India as well. The companies that want to go and exhibit their products overseas, we have export promotion for them, and that will include either trade missions or trade shows, and this will fall in the trade shows. So Arab Health, for example, is the leading healthcare show in the Middle East. So Minnesota is known for its medical device companies, so there's a huge number of interest, and we do this using a step fund, which I will talk later if time permits, to reimburse these companies up to 50% of their expenses, and we go get the booth, travel with these companies, help them export, find partnership, and so forth. So that's why we ended up in Dubai, and a lovely team for the Expo 2027 vision. And Mark, they've had a lot to say about you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being leader, helping our companies make that move. I had the great privilege and a very, very inspiring opportunity to meet our next speaker. Laure is the chair of the American Chamber of Commerce in Cameroon and a very successful business owner and leader. And Laure, we're handing the microphone to you.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Yes, I'm the CEO of Group Cybastion, which is a company in the construction sector. We do materials used for construction of roads and also for housing, essentially gravel, and we also have a tiling production business. I'm also the president of the American Chamber of Commerce, as you mentioned, which regroups about 100 business with interest in with business interest in the USA. And we have investments in sectors including banking, insurance, energy, tax and legal, hotels, and other services. And AmCham, as it is called, is dedicated to further trade and investments between Cameroon and the USA, while supporting efforts for a conducive business environment for all investors. I'm very happy to be here and looking forward to the discussion.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you for your leadership there in our AmCham connectivity point. That was very important in almost all aspects of our trade work. So thank you. Samuel.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can't see you, but we can hear you.
Oh, I have microphone issues on my phone. I mean,
fine. Keep going. Thank you.
I'm very honored to be part of this discussion. So far, I've appreciated everything I've heard. Encouraging that all of this has been happening around me, but grateful to participate today. I am, to use those kind of words, CEO of Desco International Company, a company designed to import African products for processing in the United States, preferably in Minnesota, which I know very well since 1973. I have come this far with having gone through a lot of hurdles, dealing with Cameroon, my country of origin and of birth, Ghana, Nigeria, all with different economic and financial policies. So I've had to navigate all of that, deal with either bribery or straight business. And honestly, I have survived so far. And I'm grateful that opportunities are coming up for us to discuss to see how well we could improve these channels for effective small business development for African foods in the US market and vice versa. So I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thierry?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank the Minnesota African United for setting up this important webinar. So I'm the CEO of a company called Cybastion Institute of Technology, headquartered in the US, but also in 5 African countries: Burkina Faso, Benin, Central Africa, Ivory Coast, and Guinea. I'm originally from Cameroon. I grew up in Cameroon before going to the United States. And my company is dealing with cybersecurity, digitalization, education, and seeking opportunities right now in Central and East Africa. We have been pretty successful in West Africa, working with different governments, establishing cybersecurity infrastructure, but also developing the workforce, the workforce. And I'm very happy and grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And for those of you watching, you can put questions in the chat, also in the Q&A at the bottom. But there was one that came up pretty early, and maybe I'll throw it out to the whole group. It's the belief that African immigrants often find it difficult to make the breakthrough in a culture of who you know being the kind of the question of the day. Do you have some advice or suggestions for people who are just trying to break through and to begin their journey in developing some form of international trade or exchange? What's your advice to somebody just getting started down that path? They probably need good cybersecurity, I would guess. But
definitely, Mark. So I can start. I can take the start on it. So if I look at my own experience, it was very important to the U.S. Embassy play a very important role, and the Department of Commerce as well, because they know the people that you need to talk to. They understand how the dynamic is on the country where you would like to do business. But, building building personal relationship is very important, because we spend a significant amount of time, my team and I, in West Africa to establish those ties. And it's only after 2-3 years that we were able to see some fruit. But, the starting point is with the US government, the Department of Commerce. They have a lot of connection, and they understand how things are getting done. And also with someone like Laure, who is the president of the US Chamber of Commerce, is extremely important, because that's going to help you and going to guide you. But you need to create those ties. You need to get on the ground. You cannot do trade and international business development by sitting in the United States. You need to go and get on the ground and talk to people and make your case and show why they have to work with you, because the competition with the Chinese, the Europeans are real. And they are there. They spend a lot of time. And unfortunately, US citizens, US people, US businessmen like to do things, remotely, or, it doesn't work that way. Maybe in the United States you can do that, but in Africa it's about personal relationship that you establish with those folks.
So Mark, to localize this question, the Minnesota businesses that are trying to invest or to export to Africa and the greater region, they're at different levels of export. Some of them have already exported. Some of them are what we call accidental exporter. They have had 1 or 2 orders to fill online, and now they see the potential in their market. But generally, to put it into perspective, an exporter needs a good export, business plan to have a product in the first place. And I've seen most of the exporters are business people, not production, or they're not in the manufacturing process, so they don't own a product. They know there's a need in, let's say, Cameroon, and they want to fill that need and export from Minnesota. That's now when the connection comes in. You need a good market research. What products you need to export to Cameroon, and what products can you get from Minnesota. The other thing is, market entry options. Do you want to be a salesperson? Do you want to invest in there, open a shop there? All those kind of hurdles on exporting. And of course, there's the financing part of it. That also is an obstacle. So all these obstacles are there. What we do at the Minnesota Trade Office is work with every company at their level of expertise. So if they're at the initial plan where they are developing their export plan and they just registered a business, we have programs that some of them is coming up next year, where we do how to export and how to have a business plan. If they have the product, we help them with the logistics. We help them with connection with Prosper Africa, the embassy, the district expert council. If they are in the financing part, as my colleague Thierry said, be on the ground. We have a STEP program that helps reimburse 50% of their transport costs to go and figure out if this product will work for them. So the problem is huge, and we have different stages that we can work with on the exporter. So please be.
Thank you. Laure, I think you were trying to jump in there. Please.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. As Thierry said earlier, I think finding the right partner with good knowledge of local environment and sectorial regulation is a must when you want to get into international markets. And AmCham can really help being part of the solution in selecting the right business partner, thanks to the quality of our membership, who share American values and good governance and professionalism in doing business. And our database of current and potential members who has gone through due diligence can also serve in that matter. And we can also help in some basic market intelligence. For example, for the sake of this meeting, I wanted to present few opportunities that came across in agriculture. For example, I know that Christina already clearly spoke about the opportunities broadly and also sectorial opportunities. But I wanted to insist in some of the opportunities that came across our organization. For example, in agriculture, we have, I will take example of poultry. During the last 5 years, we saw here in Cameroon a surge in demand that led to a price increase of about 50% of poultry. So there is an opportunity right there. Rice, for example, is a product that is really in lack. We currently we have been importing about 650,000 tons during the last years, and we only produce 135,000 tons. That is right here an opportunity of about 145 billion CFA. In housing, for example, that sector is close to my sector because I'm in construction. In housing, the housing deficit is close to 100,000 units a year. And out of this, 30% are needed in Douala and Yaoundé. So those are opportunities. In mining, I recently met with the general director of Sonor Mine, which is the national mining company, who purely confirmed that they are actively looking for joint venture opportunities as long as the private partner brings in the right technology and some sort of financing. In energy, Christina already clearly spoke about the opportunities in that sector for PPP or standalone projects that can be envisaged, especially in rural area where only 17% of the population have access to electricity. So those are some of the opportunities there. There are a lot, there are more, and really that's why we're here, that's why we're on the ground, to help newcomers in the market with market intelligence.
And Laure, can
Yes.
you put your best contact in the chat for people who want to follow up? Those are incredible, very specific opportunities right now. Samuel, you've had success over many years and built it, sounds like, from the bottom up. Advice for that person beginning to say, I think this could be for our company, but what should be my opening steps?
Well, how do I start? There's so much to look at, like Laure has said, in the other sectors. In the agricultural sector, where I've been principally involved, honestly, the opportunities in Cameroon are tremendously high. Processing is very much at the very low end and needs tremendous investment. So it's very open. And people who are interested, for example, from Minnesota perspective, have the opportunity to do much in the Cameroon market. In areas of flour and wheat consumption, oat flour and oat consumption, those are very highly demanded products that need some investments in terms of exporting to that market. On the other hand, my vision was principally to develop markets in the United States for those products, and I've been involved in it since 1996. It's been very difficult due to lack of technology to process the food in compliance with US standards and European markets. So I have had to go through those steps to do that, and the products are so many that I will honestly encourage people who want to step into it. Because when you look at it, when I got to United States in '73, there were only 3 of us from Cameroon. In Minnesota, we are close to, I would say, 2,000 to 3,000. Wisconsin, probably the same, all over the country, close to 2 million or plus. So the need for those foods for Cameroonians, immigrants here, and Nigerian immigrants, Ghanaian immigrants, who have come across some good spending revenue, they want to be comfortable with foods that they are used to. So those foods need to be processed in compliance with the laws to serve these customer needs within these markets here. So the need for them to be produced is very high and has a void that needs to be filled. Anybody who wants to go into those things, yes, I'll be glad to share my experience and what I've done in order to meet the compliance of the exporting countries, as well as the compliance things expected of the importing countries, yes.
Thank you very much. It seems like this pattern of getting enough people who then are in demand, able to buy and purchase foods, and then food being one of the starting points. I don't know if Christina is still able to join us, but I've heard from Prosper Africa, I believe, about a project where cocoa will be processed in our neighboring state, Wisconsin, for making chocolate products for the U.S. market. Do I have that right, Christina? And can you shed any light on how that two-way project came about?
I don't have information on the specific project you're talking about. I'm curious if it was a USAID project or
it's some kind of a direct foreign investment related. So someplace in Wisconsin, there will be a cocoa processing facility. Cocoa will come, I think, from Cameroon and be turned into products. I'm not sure all of the details, but it seems like one of the things about food is that it's highly desired, but also there are these very important regulations, especially anything crossing a national boundary.
Phytosanitary. Yeah. So I don't know about the specific Wisconsin project. What USAID does, particularly the Trade Hub in Accra, they help producers export to the United States and become export ready. Part of that is complying with the different regulations.
Great.
Phytosanitary.
And Accra has a special role for the region in the U.S. Embassy.
Accra is a regional hub for the embassy. I admit I don't speak for USAID.
Yes,
I represent
correct.
State Department. But yeah, there's a trade hub at USAID Accra.
Great.
Yeah.
There was a question about this proposed trade mission, which will include Accra and Cameroon and maybe others. Basil, do you want to take a moment and give people a quick overview of that at this stage, if it's possible? Maybe we have to keep that for a slightly bit later. In all of the answers and suggestions that our panel members have made, the underlying message about relationships, and you've got to go there and you've got to be part of the communications direct. We can imagine how difficult in this COVID period, when travel has been more difficult than almost any time I can ever remember. But I'm wondering if there are some very specific ways now, like trade missions, where there is a organized approach, or people taking advantage of going home or visiting, or are there some suggestions that you as panel members can make to how folks can effectively, even with some of the difficulties with the pandemic, to have that direct presence, that connectivity?
I can jump on it. So as you mentioned, trade shows, trade missions are very important in this sub-subject. If there is a panel of businesses that want to travel and maybe a sector, focus on a sector or focus on a couple of sectors and countries to make connections in Cameroon, in Ghana, and work with the AmCham, the Christina's team. If you have a person that you want to work with, for example, a distributor for your product, find these people, go out there on this mission. There are resources that you can use to find these missions. The U.S. Commercial Service does a lot of these missions. Basil's team want to do this mission in July. There is buyer's mission that sometimes we do to tackle this. If we cannot get the businesses from here, we sometimes get the buyers or the companies that want to do business from those regions to come to the US and meet with the producers here. So there's different levels of engagement that you can do. The easiest one probably to start with is, for example, if we have a foreign office in South Africa that covers for Africa. So if you have a product, for example, and you're based in Minnesota and you want to do a market research before you even travel there, we offer a free service for you where you can get our office to do a market research for your product in Cameroon, in Ghana, everywhere. And you get pre-meetings set up for you before you even travel on this mission. So that is the easiest way to start with, and then attend the trade show and then keep those connections going.
And would you be the contact point person for somebody who was in Minnesota for connecting to those services and those special, those special services?
Yes. So I'll be the point of contact for any business that has a export potential. I want to do a market research in Africa. Another service that is also there, and Christina would mention, is the bulky services that also companies can use if they have a 50% or plus of their product made in the US. So there are these services that businesses can take advantage of. And we kind of collect all these resources and provide to the Minnesota businesses. Our vision is to be the first stop for businesses when they want to export. So we collect this information and we have it out there for them at the free cost.
Great. I want to make sure that you've got your email put there in the chat. Thierry, you're selling service in a way that's different than a product and perhaps more complicated in some ways or less complicated than, let's say, food products. Mm-hmm. Have you found ways that making those relationships around services, in this case digital, but other services, need some special attention?
Yes, definitely, especially when you talk about cybersecurity, because many countries in Africa are embracing the digitalization. They're jumping into the digitalization without thinking about how they're going to be securing the information once they dematerialize everything. And because of that, then we have a value proposition to make. And this government in West Africa, because in Central they're a little bit behind, in West Africa, they started to create agency specifically for cybersecurity. But who are the people that they're going to be hiring? How are they going to be trained? What about the policies? What about all that? So yes, it's services, but in Africa, we have a tendency to jump into product. We just want to see the product. We want to see the blinking light. But there are so many other things, framework that comes around it that help you to have the expected outcome. And that's what we bring in. But that comes with a lot of education with the customer. You need to be able to explain them what they're missing. You need to be able to be patient. And it's about that relationship ties that you need to create to bring them up to speed about what they really need and what they have to do. And by counseling them, by being close to them to show them what they're missing and to show them the gaps into the strategy, then you have that value proposition that you can make. And that's what we have been doing, in cybersecurity. It was just not just the product. Yes, at the end, we're going to be bringing US product. We are a Cisco Platinum partner. We're working with different US companies to really sell those products, because if you only send someone from Cisco or Oracle or whatever, they're going to be selling only the product that they have, and it's not what the customer they need. we're really coming up with customized solutions for the customer depending on the need, and that require you to have boots on the ground to make that close relationship to be able to effectively sell your services.
Thank you. Good wisdom. Laure, your hand is up.
No, it was a mistake, but I can take this opportunity to share with you something that we're organizing, which I think can serve as a preparation meeting for the trade mission at the American Chamber of Commerce. We are organizing a Doing Business in Cameroon event, which will take place in April. And that will be structured around 3 sessions. That's a webinar. We will have probably the Prime Minister discuss incentive by the government to ease doing of business for U.S. investors in Cameroon. And then we will focus on 2 sectors, energy and health. So the Minister of Health and some other panelists will present, will showcase investment opportunities in the production, transportation, transmission, in Cameroon, and also in the health sector. We'll have the Minister of Health and other companies showing opportunities in the health sector in Cameroon. So I think that we will send you the information when the date is set, so that it can also serve as a preparation to the trade mission of July.
Great. Thank you. That sounds very exciting. So any information, we can get it out to everyone. Christina, your hand is up.
Yeah, something that I wanted to mention in terms of connections that many, especially small U.S. companies, may not think about is also thinking about the other development banks, such as African Development Bank, World Bank. They are also financing a lot of these projects, and they give contracts to private sector. So as you engage with your commercial service field offices, you can just kind of ask, like, what are the opportunities with the African Development Bank in this region or in this country? And then they'll have a conversation with us on how to best go about possibly making an introduction or facilitating some type of research.
Great advice. I want to say there's been very interesting postings in the chat, including some companies who want to be engaged in exporting cocoa and other very specific things. And a question has arisen: what is the role of brokers in facilitating transactions, and who are the most likely to connect together? Any wisdom, experience about the role of brokers specifically in U.S. Cameroonian connections?
I think Laura is going to be the expert on this because she's directly involved. But for Cameroon, at least, a broker knows all the regulations and processes to get whatever you're trying to get into Cameroon. And so they can. It's much easier to deal with someone who knows exactly what to do and knows the people involved, because they do it with the same people all the time. When you're trying to export something into Cameroon?
I think this falls into the export strategy that a company will have, whether they want to use a broker, whether they want to export directly, whether they want to form a joint venture. These are different levels of engagement with the businesses in Cameroon. As for a broker from Minnesota, that's what I can talk into, is you are either a export trading company or an export management company, and you approach a person who has a product here, and you know the need in Cameroon. And most of the brokers that I've seen are registered here in Minneapolis or in the metro areas. It depends solely on the company that owns the product if they want to engage with you. So that will be your target person, the owner of the product, if they want to engage with you, or if they want to use another export strategy.
And Abdi, do you keep a list of brokers and make that available through the Minnesota Trade Office?
So thank you for asking. That is a great website. We call it the International Business Directory. It's in the Minnesota Trade Office's website, where we make companies register, self-register themselves, and then put the services that they offer out there. We as a state cannot, choose one over another. So that's why we have this website where any business, any broker can register themselves and put their service out there and the contact information. And if businesses call us to ask for a broker, we refer them to that website. So I'll post the link on the chat.
Please, and it's International Trade Directory.
International Business Directory. Yep.
Business Directory, and folks will be able to see it on the chat. So that's great.
And they have translators, legal firms, brokers. So the list goes on. So you can filter it out and see which company you want.
That's really great. Laure, anything to add from your AmCham perspective?
Well, in AmCham, we have professionals in the sectors related to export. They are services company who can really help investors in locating the local partners, and also doing the due diligence that is needed in order, as Thierry or someone else said, depending on the strategy, depending on whether you want to use the broker, the distributor, really depending on how you want to get into the market. We can connect you with specific services, specific professionals to help with the service you're looking for.
And Laure, is there a monthly meeting of the AmCham or something that has a virtual component that people could attend or be part of from the United States, let's say?
We usually hold events where we can invite people from the United States. We have monthly board meetings, but this is also only for board members who meet to define the strategy of the board in order to attain our objectives. But we hold other events, usually which are open to even non-members, and that we can invite you. For our next meetings, our next events, we'll make sure that we keep you informed so that you can invite whoever is people in your network who might be interested.
Fabulous. Now, the larger picture is that over time, this commerce becomes more established and deeper and wider, and perhaps expands out into other parts of Africa, expands out in other parts of the United States. But I do believe that we're only now starting to really think ahead. I'm wondering if, Basil, you could give us a bit of information on the exact planning on the trade mission, because that's going to be a huge opportunity that we want to make sure everyone knows about it, because it takes planning to be able to really do that. Can you give us an overview?
Yes, we will have thank you, Mark, and thank you, everyone. We at Minnesota Africans United, we are really collectively thinking not only about Cameroon, but we're thinking about African diaspora community that are here in the United States of America. We're thinking about U.S. businesses, small and medium-sized enterprises. We are actually looking at banks, different forms of banks, and different sectors, different businesses in different kinds of sectors that are interested to go to Cameroon in the area of healthcare, agriculture, construction, and energy. The overall goal is really to make sure that we improve lives for the Cameroon community, create more jobs, not only for them, and also for people back here, and improve two-way street. And in order to do that, we know that bringing together Cameroonian entrepreneurs and connecting them with U.S. businesses is one step actually moving forward. In order to do that, we think that our first day will actually be trying to seek the help of the U.S. Embassy to create a moment where we can have either a dinner or a happy hour with the U.S. ambassador that will bring together businesses, but in the sectors areas that we are passionate about, and for a dinner. And then after that, we also want to set up with the help of the U.S. Embassy to set up business appointments and meetings with these African Cameroonian businesses that are over there, for U.S. businesses to actually see how they can begin to build relationships, build partnerships, close out some deals. And we are also trying to also organize an event at the end of the day to celebrate, to have a ceremony. And so business to businesses really start to really shake hands and really getting to know each other. But part of this important event is also an exploratory visit where people want to have the chance to also visit the touristic site, maybe the seaport or the Limbe port or the port in Kribi, and also talk with businesses on how this can all play into the plan. I think technically these are the points that we actually have here, but our goal is actually to hit on two countries at the same time, leaving Minnesota on July 6th, landing in Ghana and spending about a couple of days in Ghana, and leaving from Ghana and going to Cameroon. So we are actually we are still making outreach, engaging, talking, and attracting businesses in this area. And we think that by the end of March, we will have a very clear calendar that everyone will be known, everyone that has signed up for the mission. We have the plan, we have the program, we have all the schedule, and everything will be good to go.
Great. Thank you for giving us that overview. July 6th seems firm. So if people are planning, that's going to be the date that this will begin, it seems like. And in March, will this be on the MAU website, the Minnesota Africans United website?
Yes, it will be promoted across all our partners. It will be at Minnesota Africans United website, U.S. Commercial Service website. We'll work with our friends and brothers and partners, AmCham in Cameroon. We'll ask them to help promote the event. We'll ask the help of the U.S. Embassy to do the same. And I will work with our promotional partners in getting the word out.
Great. And so there'll also be our regular last Friday in the month webinar in March focused on Ghana. And it seems like that's a regional hub that Cameroon's is part of that broader regional hub. Are there very clear pictures of that'll be Ghana in March? Do you have a picture of who will be coming then in April?
Yes. So in January, that we were focused on Malawi, and a follow-up to the trip in Malawi, we are leading an exploratory visit to the country of Malawi on the invitation of their former president, Joyce Banda, and she's also bringing together other 5 former presidents of other countries, and to have an address that will be opened by the president of Malawi. We will be taking together some few delegations that want to go to Malawi. And that we scheduled to leave here on 4th of April to travel to Malawi and explore those business opportunities, to come here and then plan for a more bigger one coming forward. This one today is the second, focus on Cameroon, and the follow-up will be in July with the trade mission. The next one will be on March 29, and that will actually be focused on Ghana. And the next one will be in April, and that will be focused on the country of Tanzania. And then after Tanzania will be Kenya. After Kenya will be Zambia. And then our second trade mission will happen in the month of October. But everyone that has signed up for this webinar, we will be putting all those information on our website, and we'll be trying to drive trade between different cultures, different African countries, so people have explore the opportunities that are actually out there to inspire them to invest in those countries.
Great. Somebody asked about the MAU website. I just put that up in the chat, and that's the place. Is there a recording of the Malawi webinar available?
Yes. If you go to our website, we have an event page. We have past webinars. We have upcoming webinars. Past webinars, if you see the Malawi page. The recording is there. But the overall goal is that in September, we are going to bring together more larger two-day conference involving all these countries that have been part of this series of webinar in September. And traveling to Cameroon, traveling to Malawi, traveling to Kenya is building that outreach and coalition to really make sure that Africa is really the country of the future. And now we are not the rock stars. It's a place where more businesses could start look at business partnerships, business opportunities, and two-way trade to improve lives and create jobs and for all African diaspora in the continent, also here, and also drive revenue too, so that all of us can collectively recover from the shocks of COVID-19.
Laure.
Okay. Yes, Mark. Actually, I was thinking aloud. I was wondering if we could try to build a sort of platform where potential partners from Cameroon, for example, could already start communication with US travelers or US investors, so that when they actually come to Cameroon, there's more chance of finalizing deals.
So getting contact, getting relationship building, getting things going so that we're closer to the deal. Basil, thoughts and reactions? It seems like perfect.
Sure, that's something in the plan. We are still exploring with this interested company. Many of them have shown interest. We are also still working with the Cameroon side. We will keep working and look at it with AmCham, maybe Cameroonian Chambers of Commerce, and also the U.S. Embassy. This is something that we are thinking about this heavily and seriously. And yes, we have that on the agenda.
And Laure, it seems like this is something that's a natural for an AmCham MAU event sometime that's convenient time for you in Cameroon and convenient time here. Maybe we'll continue this offline after today. I'm very excited about that idea. We had a specific question about when is the webinar for Nigeria, and I don't have that schedule in my head. But Basil, I don't know if you're still there available, but certainly the goal is to both engage all of our major diasporas here, but also major markets as well.
We don't have any webinar plan for Nigeria for this particular year, but we are thinking about Nigeria in the next coming year or two or so.
And last year, or right before COVID, we hosted the one part of the Nigerian diaspora from the northern states here in Minnesota. The governor from Plateau came, leading the governors from the northern tier, and their commercial section in the New York consulate for Nigeria was very interested in how they could be helpful over time. So that's another way that we can work with some of the representatives from Nigeria in the United States to help build out that conversation and that bigger picture. So it's a deepening and widening that MAU has really been able to develop. So it's great. I want to give our four panelists the opportunity for any final comments and words of wisdom before I hand the microphone back to you, Basil, for final words. Anybody and everybody. Abdi.
We go first?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. So I would like to thank Basil and the Minnesota United for put this together. It's extremely important, and it will be a pleasure for my company to come to that trade mission, to go to my country of origin to see what could be done. And Laure just said something very interesting, to try to set up meetings and try to reach out to companies to start talking. So when we get there, we can actually do concrete stuff. I really appreciate that. I think it's a good suggestion. So I'm looking forward to it, and I will definitely be in touch with AmCham and through MAU to see how we can prepare that trade mission in Ghana and Cameroon. Those are the two countries that we had in our business development plan. And I'm sure that we're going to be able to bring in so many things interesting for them as well as for us. So thank you for the opportunity again.
Fantastic. Abdi.
Yes, so I want to mention before I leave that there's so much resources available for the Minnesota businesses that want to engage internationally. Take advantage of these resources. If I just mention what the trade office can help you with, there is export counseling, there is export education and training, there is export promotions where the trade missions and the trade shows happen. And I mean, for the counseling, for example, you can call our trade assistance line anytime you have a question, shipment stuck somewhere, you want to know if a person who's approaching you is someone who you should do business with, those kind of questions. Or maybe you just want to talk about exporting a new product to another country, call the trade assistance line, take advantage of the foreign offices that we have that can give you a market research in for your products in overseas. Talk to us about the strategies you have. We have regional trade managers that cover across the globe. Take advantage of the export education trainings we have that are helping startups and small businesses to make exports overseas. Take advantage of the trade missions, the trade shows. If we're having a buyer's mission coming to Minnesota, we'll definitely work with our with MAU and Global Minnesota and the export, District Export Council and the Commercial Service. So be on the lookout, get as much information as you can, and take advantage of the resources you have.
Great, Samuel.
My biggest request of issue that needs urgent attention is the human factor involved in all of this. I don't know how we can solve it, but I need help, and I think we all will need help, because the people we meet out there to recruit to do things, it's difficult to determine how efficient they could be. And I really don't know, except to tell all of us that we should find ways of trying to improve the human factor we will be needing in doing any of this. I thought I had succeeded to get staff to do some of these operations, but the COVID-19 came and I realized that I just did not succeed. Trying $100,000 since February last year till today is devastating for me, because all the human factor in place did not meet up to expectations. Phone calls and back and forth to rectify things has been very stressful. So I think we have a key issue is human factor, trying to bring them up to speed into how necessary and efficient they should be for us to be able to execute what we are discussing here. Thank you.
Thank you for that real wise and cautious observations. Laure.
Yes, I would like to thank MAU and its partner for organizing this session and later on the trade mission. I really agree with Mark and Sandy that this is a good timing. The opportunities are there. There are challenges as well, but you have the resources with organizations like AmCham, like MAU, the US Embassy, and other organizations to help tackle the challenges and be successful. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Basil, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. I really want to really begin my wholehearted thank you to Christina from all the way from Cameroon. I received some very positive comments about you having a master knowledge of the business climate over there in the country of Cameroon. We really want to thank you. Education is power, and we have been educated based on your experience. And to Sandy, thank you for being a wonderful chair, a wonderful person who has actually stepped in here to offer all those kind of opportunities and the support that the Minnesota District Office will be able to offer, not only to US businesses, but also to Cameroonian businesses that are interested in taking advantage of this webinar. We have learned a lot from our key panelists from Laure, from Dr. Thierry, Abdi, Samuel. And we believe that business to business is really one of it. When COVID actually came in, nobody was actually prepared for anything. We had challenges, we've gone above and beyond that. Now is actually the time to really recover. And you guys have come in with your passion and you have put forward the opportunity that are actually lying there. We will go behind, work on what we discussed today. We will have this plan communicated to each and every one of you, and we will make it publicly in the month of March. And once more, thank you. And we look forward, and we hope for you to watch our last video that our technology person will play. And we ask you to keep joining our webinars in the month of March, April, May, and June. That will be focused on Ghana, Tanzania, and Kenya, and then Zambia. And then our bigger one that will be in September for 2 days. Thank you so much.
My name is Ngwa Toboso. I'm the founder and CEO of LifeBank. LifeBank is a supply chain company operating in 3 countries in Africa. We deliver critical resources, critical commodities like blood, oxygen, vaccines, the works, to busy hospitals in emerging markets. We're raising a round that would allow us to expand our business even more, expand what we're currently doing. By being listed at the Prosper Africa deal room, we think that we'll have a capacity to meet the right investor. I like to think of myself as having this dual, place in the world. I'm Nigerian, basically African and American. And I think for me, what I see is opportunity to, drive impact in people's lives on the continent, the opportunity to, invest and actually have returns. Right? I think for me, what is really incredible about operating in Africa is that, it's like greenfield, right? There's so many opportunities here on the continent to do 2 critical things. For me, it is impact, actually having impact on human life, impact that you can count, that you can see. And more importantly, and maybe equally important, is getting that return. And the size of the continent makes this actually possible.